are they quoting? Are they putting stuff in the system? And I'll be upfront, any producer who's not willing to update the systems is not a producer you should have.
It's not necessarily micromanaging. It's taking your metrics, showing them to your people, being transparent about it, and showing them the expectations you have.
All right, everybody. We are joined here today with Therese Potter, and we're talking all about, some of the things we dive into with our agency assessment, which is basically a whole physical for your agency, right? And goes top to bottom, sees what we're doing. And a big question that we always get is, hey, when should I get a producer, right? Like some agencies have been burned because they had producers and they're like my mom will never date again because, she's divorced. She never wants to go through that again. So we're never going to get a producer again. And then some people, I think, are just kind of maybe a little bit unclear. How do you pay a producer? Do we have enough budget? And I know some of the agencies you worked for, Therese, you guys definitely had like sales and service. So what kind of benefits did you see by separating the two?
I think one of the biggest benefits of separating the two is the focus. They can focus on sales. They don't have to worry about the service. They can really get those leads and sell. So I think in the last one, we were looking at what she called it sales velocity, how quickly they, bring in the revenue from a sale. And we really have to focus our leads on, if you get a lead, work it, sell it, and move on. So if somebody is focused on sales and they're producer only, they have the time to jump on those leads and sell them quickly. But if somebody's doing sales and service, they tend to get more distracted by the service because a lot of people find the service easier. Mm-hmm. So they'll jump on the service stuff and they'll ignore the sales stuff and let the sales stuff. And that's the wrong thing to do. Because a lot of the service stuff can wait. It's the sale that can't wait because people need those and you need to grab them quickly because the percentage in selling when you get back to the lead quickly is so much higher. So I think the pros of having the two separate is just the focus that the producer can have on actually selling.
I think that's really good. And then I also look at it from the perspective of, hey, what are the agency's goals, right? So if you have a team and everybody's servicing and selling, that's one model. There's nothing wrong with that model. But sometimes everybody at that desk level has to make a decision based on their own beliefs, right? And I do this exercise a lot, and agencies roll up and say, hey, you know what? Somebody comes with a new business and a current customer comes in and is upset by price. What do you do first? And there's no right or wrong answer. This is like one of those like philosophical questions out there. And, you can identify, like some people will say, well, I'll take the sale first because I can tell the customer I'll call them back. Some of the people are like, no, you take care of that customer first because they trust you. And I think you need to sort of identify, at least like with the team, what is the priority? Because when everybody's applying their own priority, that also gets really, really, really challenging.
Well, and I find sometimes that leaders don't put in their priorities. They don't build those processes and procedures for their staff to understand what the expectation is. So if you haven't taught your staff what that expectation, what that agency standard is, they're not going to know it and they're going to use their personal beliefs, and everybody's personal beliefs are going to be different. So that's why you as an owner need to build those processes and procedures that we can help you with to basically, so everybody's doing it the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this also goes into some things we talked about last one, like tiers, client tiers. What are you doing? So for me, when we're looking at, okay, do you need a producer? Do you not need a producer? Is, we look at the team and everybody's burned out and everybody's crispy. And then we do these things called secret shopper calls. And the secret shopper calls go in a lot of different directions. Some are good, some are medium, some are bad. But when people don't get a quote, I know I have a broken sales process. So sometimes I like to say there's, maybe we just need to be very selective about our new business because that's the season of our agency that we're in. Sometimes it might be like, well, if I get someone dedicated to new business, this will run more efficiently. We're not burning time by practice quoting. We're instead making it far more efficient. And I think for a lot of agencies, they have to decide, is it an inbound producer where, hey, the agency's generating leads and they're coming into them? Or is it somebody that you want out hunting and gathering and knocking on doors? But I would caution agencies to decide what you're talking about because it's two different hires you might make. An inbound person is not going to be the person that goes and gets, 20x dates. They are going to do a great job with what calls in, but that's where it's going to end. Now they'll make outbound phone calls, right? Like they can make calls to lost customers or unsold quotes, things like that. But they're not necessarily going to be doing drop bys or cold calling. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think if we've got a target market and we know what we're selling and we actually have a lead call in that isn't one of our target markets and we know we're not going to sell to them, we need to be honest to them. I have one that came in today, a commercial secret shopper call that he told the shopper that he doesn't have time. I don't have time. I'm not going to bump you to the front of the line. She even said, hey, I've got a couple quotes. I just wanted to test, to give you a chance. And he was like, well, I don't have time and I'm not going to bump you to the front of the line. And he said it just like that. So I think if that was something that that agency won't write, you need to just be honest with the customer and say, hey, that isn't something we write here. Let me recommend somebody else. Or if you have other quotes, I recommend moving forward with those quotes. But we've got to be honest and transparent with the people that we're talking to as well. We can't just say to somebody, I don't have time for you. That's not a good wow customer service answer.
Yeah. And I also think too, if you're looking at some of the numbers like in the podcast earlier this month about sales velocity, like, man, we have to rev up new business, putting someone dedicated on it. And I do believe you have to find the right person. Like we should all just be upfront and honest. Salespeople do have a high turnover rate, and that's either because they're performing or they're not performing or they're highly sought after. I love, and I think sales gets such a dirty word, but like, salespeople make the highest in the United States of America with the least amount of education. So, and it is not pushy, like I'm going to sell ice to an Eskimo. It is talking to people intelligently about their insurance. And insurance is such a brilliant product because everybody has to buy it and there's a deadline to buy it, generally speaking. So you just need somebody that you can prep up and prime up and get out there. I think another thing that, when you get a producer, everybody's always a little nervous. Like there is a ramp up time, right? They're not going to be profitable kind of on day one. And through our agency assessment, we definitely talk about different compensation strategies. But I think the biggest thing that you need to make sure every producer is doing is a lot of activity. So if they're just sitting waiting for the phone to ring, that's not good. An agency we were just at, their producers claimed they weren't producing because they were doing a lot of service work because the agency was short staffed. And I said, we have to put a stop to that by January 1. Like, because it's really comfy to sit behind your desk and not hit your sales goal when you need to be out generating new business. And I think that is something people have to really identify is, are they quoting? Are they putting stuff in the system? And I'll be upfront, any producer who's not willing to update the systems is not a producer you should have.
Well, and that's another reason why metrics are so, so, so important in these cases because everybody has an excuse for everything. Mm-hmm. There's always excuses. So we've got to get past those excuses because the excuses are feelings. We got to get past those and we have to. And my first agent that I worked for had a very structured micromanaging type way that he did things. And I hated it at the time. I followed it, but I can tell you, I learned more about numbers and metrics and about how to do things the right way and have a goal than any other agency that I worked at. And he expected us to hit those numbers. And I would always hit those numbers because I was that kind of person where I will not fail. If I have a goal, I have to. And then he was like, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to put everybody on 1099. And he did that. And I made the most money that year in my whole insurance career. And then he popped us back over to W-2 because I made too much money, and that, of course, then the IRS is like, hey, we're going to audit you because we don't understand this. It's not necessarily micromanaging. It's taking your metrics, showing them to your people, being transparent about it, and showing them the expectations you have. So when you're hiring a producer, a job description is very, very important, that it's clear on what you're expecting from them. And, the commissions and the money is also very clear because, there is a time and a place to hire a producer and there's a time not to. And sometimes people just, I just found this guy and he's a really good salesperson, so I'm going to hire them, even though, you don't need to hire somebody right now. You need to maybe train the ones you have.
Yep. I think that is great. And I think all of it starts with having a clear sales process and not just a quoting process, but just
Absolutely.
what does this look like? How many times do you want them to follow up? Having tracking. But, if you're generating, let's just say in personal lines, you've got maybe 20 qualified opportunities a month, you could have a salesperson and they would close that at a higher level. They would keep generating, they'd ask for referrals that would keep coming in. You take some time off of your service team to keep focusing on the service. And I think on commercial lines, you'll get call in small business, but if your vision is to crack into the middle market, is crack into the larger, you do need to think about producers because those are the people that are going to go out there and get them going. And I just want to make a comment. If like you've had producers in the past and they didn't work, you have to look at there are other agencies that have producers that are working. So what was the difference? Was it unclarity, lack of goals? Salespeople need to be managed. That very, very few salespeople should be left to their own devices to go do things like they need to be told, they need to be motivated, they need to be said, slapped on the wrist when they don't write good business. I think a big missing component is like we just let them do whatever they want. And then all of a sudden they've been here for 3 years. And it's like, well, but we didn't really train them and this and that. What do we do now? And I'm like, well, the person either wants it or they don't. And if they don't want it, they're going to keep doing what it is. Are you prepared to terminate them, write them up, or put them on a performance improvement plan? And I think some agency owners have guilt because they didn't do their part maybe of the bargain. But I say fresh start, new day. And from this day forward, it's a clean slate. And that person's either going to rise up or depart. And some of those producers that are hanging out, like they know they have a good gig and they're not trying to bring it to your attention that they're not exactly lighting the world on fire.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have a shameless plug. If you have a producer, buy them one of these sweatshirts because wearing it and posting pictures on social media wearing it gets you a really lot of attention. A lot of insurance agents, friends don't know they're insurance agents. Post a picture like this with this sweatshirt on, and everybody on your social media feed will know. It's incredible how many comments I have got about this sweatshirt and if I sell insurance. So
just I wear insurance agent sweatshirts for fun. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't sell, but I can highly recommend.
Yeah, it's just funny to me, like my mom wearing it. Like, no, it's just my daughter's company.
Yeah.
So if you're on the hit cusp, I would say do it, but be prepared, have a plan, be understanding how to track it. Like maybe take the next quarter and plan it out. But I think that there's only opportunity in the long run. So
Absolutely.
All right, Therese, we'll see you on the next podcast.
Sounds good.